Welcome to Real Flix Reviews. We're like a book club for people who hate reading. This week we're reviewing Band of Brothers, the miniseries. And there will be no movie news at the end of the program. This week we have Jonathan Charney, James Stevens, Ryan Preston,
and the old man.
This miniseries is about the story of Easy Company of the U.S. Army's 101st Airborne Division and their mission in Europe from Operation Overlord through VJ Day. And there is some amazing actors in this movie, and so what we're going to do is I'm going to read it. They're going to tell me to stop when you think they've heard enough.
We thought it was important for our audience to understand how well done this movie is, and
our series,
miniseries, and how the actors that are in it. They're just incredible list of just fantastic actors.
And
we should win an award for casting this thing.
Exactly.
And this is not this list is not in any order as far as I can see, but here it goes. It is Scott Grimes, Matthew Leach, Damian Lewis, he played Winters, Ron Livingston, who played Nixon, Shane Taylor, who played Corporal Eugene, Donnie Wahlberg, who played Carwood Lipton, Peter Youngblood Hills, Shifty Powers. You had, oh God, I can't pronounce his name. I think it's Nicholas Aaron. I don't know why I had a hard time. Nicholas Aaron, who played Popeye. Philip Bartini, he played Wayne Skippy. Sisk, Michael Cuddles.
So
Rick
maybe
Gomez.
we've gotten enough. The idea is, the idea here
I like Rick Gomez, who played Luz.
Rick
He's
Gomez.
been in a few other
Well,
things.
I mean, there's some bigger guys, and like I said, John's list is in no particular order, but there are just some incredible actors in it. And I think you can just take our word for it that the actors are fantastic. And as Ryan stated, I think the casting and who did the casting needed an award just for that. It was fantastic.
This, I have to admit, I probably said it, and when we were talking about it during our normal movie reviews, I never watched this when it came out just because of one person, he will not be
He
named.
loves David Schwimmer. Just to throw it out
All
there.
right, so there's
David Schwimmer's
I-
in it too.
I personally just don't like him as an actor, and I originally didn't watch it because of him, which was a huge
Fine.
disjustice to this
movie.
miniseries, because this
Absolutely.
is an amazing miniseries, and there's a lot of little things in this movie that you see. Do you think, wow, these writers or the actors put a lot into it, from how people move to doing certain things. Everything's very well thought out in this. In this
The
miniseries.
cinematography for a miniseries, I think, is fantastic. The effects,
Some of the best I've ever seen.
exactly. And this is a miniseries.
I think actually what we need to do as well is to also say big thanks to David Frankel, Michael Solomon, Tom Hanks, David Leland,
Right.
Richard Longcrane, David Nutter, Phil Alden Robinson, and Tony Toe, who are all the directors, and that covers all the episodes as
all the
well.
10 episodes. Yeah.
But they did a fantastic job as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
You could tell that we all really enjoyed, I don't even think enjoyed is the correct word, but we really liked this miniseries. It was so well done in many respects. As I started to say, talking about the cinematography, the special effects, the realism.
Yeah.
They were, in my knowledge of firearms and guns, they were pretty right on with most of that type of stuff.
I would like to add the color palette in this
Oh.
movie was amazing. I personally own it on Blu-ray, and some of the scenes are almost nauseating. The shaking, the looking, and everything is just it's an amazing.
I think one of
way
the
it
things
looks.
we also need to point out is that I personally believe that this, if you look at it and you take yourself out of it and think this is like fantasy, is a wrong aspect. I think there needs to be many times during this series is to wake up and realize this actually happened.
This
This
would be the
is
type
not something
you got it right.
mystical. Yeah.
You got it absolutely right. And it's a shame that, and maybe it is, but I'm not aware of it being shown in school. But I think this is in history. This would be a wonderful thing to have, because I believe it's as close to real as you're going to get.
Way better than All Quiet on the
so-
Western Front, which we watched in high school.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Well, yeah.
I want to jump right into. It's one of the first.
I think we need to let Ryan have his.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Sorry.
We all talked, and
No,
Ryan.
so, I was going to say what's interesting about this one as opposed to most other ones, when they're doing sort of a not really a fantasy version, but
A Hollywood version.
we're here. taking liberties with certain stories that happened in World War II.
Right.
With this one in particular, you had like 6 surviving members of Easy Company who would roll over. You know what I mean? Or
kick your
chain
butt
themselves to the building if they started getting any parts of the story wrong.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
And to Ryan's point is,
these guys were making sure that it was.
exactly. So what you got, if you haven't seen it, is there's actual members of Easy Company being interviewed prior to parts of the miniseries, and they talk about what's taking place or what's going to take place. They were there, and they can contest to the accuracy of the movie.
And that adds so much more credence to this miniseries. And I'm going to kind of jump right into.
And hold on, I want to point out one thing is at the end. At the end, they kind of did like the Sandlot type thing of where they actually talked about where everybody was, and it was basically a rip off of the end of Sandlot. But it was. It's okay. But they did it real well.
And it worked. I love it.
They did it really well, and I liked it too.
It did finish the story of where everybody ended up.
Yeah. And I thought that was an interesting thing is that they were talking about that and how they even pointed out the ones who did not keep in touch
or make it
because of what that really meant to them, that they wanted to know that that person was okay and to know that they were doing well. Because if not, then they would reach out to that person. And that's pretty much really how tight of a bond they built through this.
You go through what these guys went through. I'm sorry. You go through what these guys went through. There's no way that you can't get a bond between themselves that nobody else could have.
I love they talked about a guy who like in 1960 or something went on a boat and they never found him again. Yeah. So that's how much everybody really cared. Like, they said they cared about each other. They tried to keep as many tabs on people as they could. So anybody?
No, go
ahead. Why don't we get a synopsis of, John, you've got a bunch of notes. Why don't you give a synopsis of it's 10 parts. This is a 10-part miniseries.
I've got it here
produced by HBO, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, so why don't we go through the parts so you guys get an understanding from the beginning all the way to the end, how they put it together.
Well, I was gonna start jumping in. I was gonna just go from episode 1, which is titled Kurahi. This is basically them and Boot. The episode starts out with them on D-Day. All right, this is where we get to see my favorite actor, David Schwimmer, and so any comments on this? Because my comments on this one was really one of my number one comments when they were doing battle maneuvers. Inside
this was boot camp. It started at boot camp.
But when they were doing maneuvers, playing soldier in the forest area. The one thing that really stuck out is David Schwimmer's character. What's his actual name? Sobel?
Yeah.
Sobel actually chose to take out the 2 heavy gunners as wounded
Sobel.
Instead of picking out other people. That stuck out to me because he's taking out 2 of the most important people in that squad, the heavy gunners.
He was a great trainer, but I think it wanted to show how much of a lack of actual real world experience that this guy had.
Oh no, and
he couldn't follow a map. I mean, the man was a great physical trainer and in all those aspects, but for the life of him, he couldn't read a map.
He commanded discipline.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
That's what he did.
And when he got out into the real world aspects of it, is you do not have control over everything. That's what he wanted. He wanted control over every last aspect.
Yeah. And there's also the part of the character he was obviously out there for glory, because you see him in one of the other episodes as a supply general or major or something.
Well, remember he got pushed back. Instead of letting him go to Europe, they said, you did such a fine job training these men that we're going to keep you as a trainer. And that was actually probably a very smart thing to do. He did make a very fit command.
And later in that episode, there was also all the NCOs, all the sergeants and all gave up their commission, which would probably either be jail or the death penalty at that time. I mean, so they risked everything to make sure that everybody realized that this guy is bad.
Right.
So Ryan, sorry to cut you off.
No, it's cool. I was just going to say that I think part of his problem, the reason these guys joined Easy Company or the Airborne to begin with, they mentioned it of episode 1 or 2, was they wanted to train to be the best, so they knew that the guy next to them would be the best, and they already kind of had that bond, and they almost sort of bonded over the shitty leadership, not the training, but the leadership of Sobel. I think when Sobel got into the real world applications of the stuff, the jumps, and then the maneuvers and whatnot, I think he realized exactly how alone he was in that whole situation.
I actually have a note on that, believe it or not. When he was going to jump out of the airplane the first time, physically you could see how scared he was. And I had a note and said...
There's nobody behind him, saying, hey, don't worry, we're all going to be okay. Everybody was like, hope this guy's chute doesn't open.
Yeah.
Right.
So the next episode is episode 2, Day of Days, and I think that's where it talks about, is that D-Day?
Yeah. Well, it talked about them getting ready for that day.
That's pre-D-Day.
And how many times they went out to do it, and they went back and watched the movie.
That's right. And later on, it was also talking about D-Day, because I have a note. It was saying if the storm wasn't trying to kill you, the Germans were. And you're in a little tin can with a couple of props.
Well, I'm trying to cross the English Channel, and if you guys have ever seen the English Channel, I can't imagine how they did it.
Could you imagine, though, being one of those Germans and sitting in your little gun waiting for them to come, and all you hear is just the rumbling before it even comes, and you just hear the noise, and then you look up and you see the stars getting blotted out by the amount of planes that were coming over. Could you imagine that?
And
I mean, literally, I do not think that they could have seen the stars with how many planes were coming over. So you just see that, like, black coming your way until you start shooting and blowing things up.
And I think this is the one that's the first time we see shaky cam in this miniseries, which to me personally is the best use for it. Is the scene where you had all those German 88s? Is that what they were? You had there
88 guns shooting,
and you had these guys. You had this one guy, which shows you how crap war was a couple. He almost died twice by a grenade. One was his. I loved this scene for a couple of reasons. One, it was you see the guys kind of figure out, oh, hey, do this, because there was no rule book that would say, no tactical rule book. They kind of made it as they went, and you could see how some of this was just pure luck that some of these guys even made it as far as they did.
True.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was that.
I think as a testament to how good the storytelling is you see so vividly. None of these guys would have been able to do more than they did not had the bond with everybody that they were with.
Oh yeah.
It's the collective strength of the group that gave them, the individual the even fortitude to just take another step forward after all the
but that's
shit that's in front of you.
That's what they said you mentioned that they wanted. They wanted somebody who they knew was the best right next to them, so that when they're in the middle of the shit and bullets are flying past them, you see people dying next to you, that you just have that guy next to you saying, hey, I got your back, let's do it.
The other thing I was going to say, some of these guys joined because there was like $50 extra on a paycheck. Which I also thought was kind of amazing too.
Sorry.
But yeah, this episode was just amazing. I was going to say, the other thing is it's a testament to Winters and how everybody realized that there's, in the chaotic that is war, there was one person who was kind of their rock was Winters, as he was going to be there, and unlike some of the leaders, he was in front.
Yeah.
Which is something you don't see a lot. There's also episode 3 is Keratin. James, if you want to go.
Yeah, this one brings up something that they didn't even know existed, and they came up with it later on, which is shell shock. This is where you get the introduction of Blythe, who is only in one episode, but that character actually brings a lot to this film.
Yes.
In the sense that it really shows what happens. I mean, he had hysterical blindness before they even knew what hysterical blindness was. They really thought that he had just lost his marbles.
You get to see how people actually, like Winters and some of the command, were actually good when they realized that this guy was no good in fighting. It just let him out of battle.
Yeah, well, he kind of did, but he also came up and once he's like, "You're okay? You can see?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can see." And you saw Winters just saying, "Okay, well, he's ready to go again." He let him have that much trust. He trusted the guy to be ready and fit for fighting, which he was. He actually went out and he actually did fighting himself, but he died in the midst of battle. But It was that they didn't really know how to react to it. So pretty much all Winter's tactic is okay, I'm going to let you be. You relax. You do what you need to do. Come back when you're ready.
Yeah, which I thought was really cool. The other thing I thought was nuts is shooting bazooka a couple of feet from a Tiger tank.
Oh, yeah.
Shrapnel. This is one of the ones we get to see the effects of spears, and how the story of spears kind of evolved, because you got to see the more and more the story of Spears, I don't remember his first name, got around, more and more people, even his own side, were like, this guy's scary, but I'm glad he's on our side.
I'm not finding it right now. But yeah, I agree. I think and I like the one where he, I think it's the breaking point, or no, the last patrol, where Spears pretty much sits down and talks to Lipton and says, the Roman commander, he was talking about the Roman commander, I can't think of the guy's name right now, but he talked about that and said, do you think that, they had stories about him? And do you think that he denied them? Because of the fact that they wanted to have the biggest and baddest commander that was there. And that's what Spears was, especially running across the enemy lines, there and back. Not only did he go and catch up with the other guys, but he came back.
And the story of Spears, sorry I didn't introduce it earlier, is basically there were...
Ronald Spears, sorry.
Ronald Spears. There was a bunch of German soldiers, and one that was actually kind of raised in America that was on the side of the road, had been captured. Spears came up and killed them all. And one guy, I don't remember which guy saw it.
Luz, I think.
Luz, there was one guy that saw it, and he told the story of it, and this story evolved into Spears just being somebody that even his own men feared him, but that seemed to inspire awe in the fact they followed him.
Yeah,
they knew he wasn't one guy who would ever back down.
Yeah, and I like the thing that he says is that you always run into the guy who knew the guy who was there, but you never run into the guy who was actually there. It's always the guy who knew the guy, or the guy who heard the story from the guy.
And the episode 4 is Replacements, and I actually really love this episode solely for the reason and how bad it would be to be a replacement. A replacement is a guy who's generally filling spots in a unit once some people die. The beginning of this episode I thought was really telling when you saw they're in a bar or something, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
They're in a bar, and the scene is they're guys they're all telling stories, and there's a couple of replacements sitting on, and if you don't know, the 101st Easy got a unit citation, and so one of the guy walked up and started giving him crap about the unit citation, and so in respect the guy took it off, left it on the table, and walked away, and the guy who was giving crap to the replacement didn't actually make it on D-Day. And so,
well, no, he made it on D-Day, but it was for what they did at Carentan.
Well, yeah. Well, no, because...
Or Normandy. They took the guns.
Yeah,
sorry.
But basically the story was the guy got shot on the plane, never actually landed, wasn't even there during the reason why the unit got the citation. Yeah. And this guy came up and said, "Why?
Bull.
You weren't there."
Bull.
Bull walked up and said, "You weren't there. Why are you bitching?" And
Bull was... I don't know if they actually got a character that matches Bull, because Bull wasn't there in the opening scenes. Mm-hmm. But... oh, man. If he was a big guy like that, I wouldn't mess with him either.
I thought that...
I had read somewhere that most of the main actors were chosen because they looked just like the other guys.
That's what I'm thinking. And oh, man, I'll get to him. But, the one guy that always amazed me was Shifty. Mm-hmm. Shifty Powers was one of the guys that he wasn't very prominent through the series. He was not as prominent as Luz or Bull or Commander Dyke or, any of these guys. I think even Commander Dyke even had more of a role than Shifty Powers did. But every scene that Shifty Powers was in is one where you could see this guy who was a humble man, a very simple guy, but one of the best shots in the entire thing, and people trusted him and respected him.
He was, in a way, their sniper.
And so much in respect, I'm going to jump way ahead to the point where the entire platoon agreed that Shifty Powers, although he didn't have the points to go home, deserve to go home.
Yeah, and if you get anybody out there actually knows a little bit of what they were using, he was shooting an M1 Garand,
which is not exactly the easiest thing to do long range.
Well, it's the one thing. It's 20 pounds. I mean, it's like 5 to 10 to 15 pounds. It's a very heavy rifle.
I think it's like 11.
Now, I'm exaggerating.
Depends on how much Cosmo
John's
is in
not
the stock.
John's not a weightlifter.
No, but it's actually a very heavy rifle, and it's actually not bad long distance, but it's a very heavy rifle, and so generally when these guys doing this shot, he's been lugging this thing for a while, so this guy is tired and still has the ability to make fairly good,
well,
target
not to mention
acquisition.
shooting with iron sights, and those sights are really weird. It's got that backside ring.
It's called a peep sight.
And then what's that?
Peep sight.
It's a peep sight.
It's called a peep sight.
I don't like peep sights.
Thank you.
The other thing in this
Just give me the
this
straight
episode-
iron sights and I'm okay.
The other thing in this episode that really was probably to me would have been at the time one of the scariest things is you had 2 Sherman tanks versus a German tank. And if you know anything about World War II, American tanks, is you were better on top of them than inside of them.
Yeah.
And so...
But we could outproduce them.
Yes.
We outproduced them. We just couldn't outproduce good tanks.
Not at the rate, but we had the numbers. That's what did it.
Okay, no, we're not going to get into the tanks issue.
No, but at
That's not the point of this one.
but at that time, I mean, that had to be scary because, one tank would have died, and so the other tank had to be on their game to at least try to disable that tank. And if I remember correctly, I think the best way to do it was at the tail end.
Yeah.
Any other comments on that episode?
I'm good.
Well, I was going to say that they're trying to warn that commander of that tank that they're coming up on a tank that's hidden. And that guy just wouldn't not listen to him. And I understand his reasoning of, well, I can't see it, so I very well can't shoot it. And they're trying to tell him, if you just destroy this wall or this side of this building, you'll be able to see it.
And he paid the penalty of it.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, if you really think about it, I understand that you're supposed to be minimizing the amount of collateral damage you have, but you're also jeopardizing all the men in your tank along with yourself. You're jeopardizing your lives because it just never made any sense to me.
We're gonna skip on to the next one because this episode is already gonna run long.
Okay.
But I want to give every episode kind of a fair ability to talk. But first, we're gonna hear from. What was your point, Ryan? Before you switch.
Oh no, I was just gonna say if I was the guy in the tank and somebody was telling me, oh, he's just right around the corner, I might be taking his word for it.
Right.
I'm willing to give a point here where I think there was so much noise and so much artillery going on and so many things that at a certain point, especially in a tank in that era, their hearing was shot. And trying to get their attention when they're focused, you're in battle and everything comes down to, you lose all the peripheral, right?
That's
Everything's
a really good
just
point.
in front
Tunnel
of you.
vision.
Tunnel vision. So I think that's what happened in that particular
That's
scene.
actually, I like that. I never thought of
actually...
it. Episode 5 is entitled Crossroads. This is another amazing episode. I'm going to keep saying amazing because this whole series is absolutely amazing. But this is literally my first note is, damn, one hell of a way to start an episode. Shooting a German soldier and splashing a guy with urine. Starts the whole thing off. I think I'll let Ryan start this episode.
Okay. Now I got to remember specifically.
Okay, then I'll
Keep
skip
going, Jonathan. Keep going. We'll jump in.
I'll catch him up on it. This is the one where
Sorry.
the Captain Spears goes running straight forward into the German line where he comes across a bunch of Germans all standing there, and he shoots the guy, and he goes back to Paris, hangs out in Paris for a little while. It's Crossroads. It's right before they get into the Battle of the Bulge, Bastogne.
And this was the episode.
Right before.
And this was the episode where Winters lost the Easy Company.
Yeah.
Because to me, this is to me the one thing that had to be the hardest about battlefield commissions. You had a guy like Winters, who was loyal to his men, like absolutely loyal to just really his men. He loved everybody else, but to him, his safeguard his people, and he lost the unit to be in charge of the entire battalion, right?
Yes.
Right.
And so you had that, being a guy from in combat, being the first in line, an old school leader, to his ass was in the rear with the gear, and not being there had to be the hardest thing ever.
Yeah, really. Really, I mean, well, just knowing the shit that you went through to try to keep the people safe, and you're kind of wondering if the next guy is going to feel the same sort of sense of responsibility towards those people that he's been with the entire time, you know?
Yeah. And the scene where he actually, and I'm kind of jumping back and forth with my notes here, the scene where Winters told all his men to stay back in charge. My note on that literally was, there's a fine line between being a madman and a hero, and Winters found it right there.
Yeah.
Well, he said to wait for the signal, and he threw the can, and what he didn't realize was that there was going to be that few second delay. I don't think that went through his mind. I think he just chucked it and was expecting everybody to follow him, but he didn't realize that there was that, what was it, 4 or 5 second delay before the smoke started coming out.
And the guy stopped one of the dudes. He's like, wait for the smoke.
I actually think he knew it.
I don't think he did. I don't think that was crossing his mind. I think he set himself up in the position of, we're going to do this, and he just takes it, chucks, and let's move. I think that's all that went through his head, and I don't think he even thought about all those guys behind him, because he had trusted that they were all there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what it was. I don't think it was that he was trying to go for some little guts or glory thing. Winters does not seem like that guy to me.
I don't think it was guts and glory. I just don't think it was one of these things. I think Winters had this plan in mind and did it, and just didn't think of the consequences, because his goal was set forth, and he's trying to protect his guys. That's kind of what I thought. You know.
No, I think that he was expecting everybody to go with him at the same time, and that's why he chucked it.
A couple of steps behind him, as opposed to 40.
Yeah, but I think his adrenaline was already going at that point.
Yeah, totally.
And that he wasn't thinking that far. He was thinking of the task, the steps that I need to get this job done.
And that new easy commander that stepped in was kind of a nitwit.
Yes, Dyke, Commander Dyke. But you know, the thing that they say about Commander Dyke was that he was somebody's son who was just moving up the ranks, and this was just one step on the ladder. But the thing that he didn't realize was that when they gave him the command of Easy Company, how pinnacle and how major of a battle this was going to be.
Oh yeah.
They didn't know that the Battle of the Bulge was going to be, quote unquote, the Battle of the Bulge.
They didn't know it was the turnaround.
A lot of people
and
may know it, but they don't know what happened there.
He basically is what they called them the ring knockers, and those were people that usually went to either Annapolis or West Point. He went to West Point, and to further your career, you had to have some combat experience, and that was, because his dad was a general, and so this was their way to progress him along the line, is give him a little battle experience and hope he doesn't get killed.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
That brings up to the next episode, and that's episode 6, Bestone. And I'm actually going to leave this one to James.
Well, this one brings up a great character called Eugene Rowe, also known as Doc. And I like that they bring this in, but the thing that they show in this one is how much loss of life actually happened during the Battle of the Bulge. And what this one focuses on is the Doctor going back and forth between taking care of his guys and kind of a little bit of a love interest. I don't know if that really was a love interest in real life or if they tossed that in for Hollywood effect. But the nurse that he had, the French nurse, who could have actually been there. There was known that civilians were there and they were nurses and they were helping people. But this one, I do not admire his job.
Mm-mm.
To have so many guys that you're there that you come to like and you come to take care of, like it was starts with the G. What was that guy's name that had the urine infection, the bladder infection?
Oh yeah, I don't remember. I know
he lost his legs in the next episode.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name right now, and I do like his character. Anyway, but he lost his legs, but he's sitting there and he's got this guy coming around. Hey, Doc, it hurts when I pee. Come and help me out, man. But, he's got to put things in perspective, and he's going around trying to get the tools that he needs to do his job. He can't do it. Because
there's no supplies, so he's trying to extend every little thing he has.
Yeah, and he's going around finding people's scissors, has to pretty much steal scissors from one of his guys who's not giving it up to him. But, and then I bet that guy heard his name being yelled out in his sleep. Because there's a scene where he's sitting in a foxhole, and there's explosions going on, and he hears somebody yelling, "Medic! Medic! Medic!" And they had to come and find him in the hole, and he's just sitting there, zoned out, lost in space.
And we're gonna switch to episode 7 too, since this really kind of ties in the whole story. So let's bring episode 7 into this too, and this is called the Breaking Point, which is another story part of the Breaking of the Bulge. So you know what I mean? Battle of the Bulge.
Battle of the Bulge. Anyway, so yeah, the breaking point is basically where you see all these troops basically torn apart by the Battle of the Bulge and the constant explosions over and over and over again, and finally Truman showing up and rescuing them, though they didn't really need rescuing.
This part had to be horrible because this is the part where you're getting bombed. So it's either death by getting bombed or death by trees exploding.
Yeah, shrapnel.
And there is one part in this to me that I thought was funny. There was a guy with a white helmet wrap and a brown uniform. That made me laugh pretty good because, what's the point?
Well, it was winter and they were in snow.
Garnier. Bill Garnier. Sorry, guys.
With the brown
I had to think of gonorrhea before it came up. But that's what they did in the show, remember? Right. That's what they said. It rhymes with gonorrhea. Garnier.
It's along with a tradition for Easy Company to get shot in the ass.
Yeah.
That was one of the traditions.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, the explosions of that, and then you get, you're trying to hide in there. In this episode, the breaking point shows where, there's that one guy where he's crawling across the ground trying to get to there, and they're all calling him, "Come here, come on, come on, come on!" And then all of a sudden,
he made it. He would have died with them.
Yeah, and they blow up, and then it shows Lipton going around trying to find a decent commander. They're trying to have that discussion along with us during the Battle of the Bulge, and he gets in another one, another foxhole, and they have one laying right there too.
You remember one of the things that caught my attention the most was Donnie Wahlberg's character.
Yeah, Lipton.
When the first barrage came over, he felt like a kid at 4th of July. I mean, because everything is blowing up and exploding, and he's laughing and just carrying on until the barrage stops, and he gets to see the devastation that's done, and the realism of what really happened then just like hit him like a brick.
Yeah.
And it was a very emotional moment.
And this is the same one we get to see more effects of war with.
What was that, Ryan?
I was saying that was a pretty good moment. Matter of fact, I wanted to bring it up earlier when we were talking about the medic. With everything that's kind of going on, if you're not the medic, I mean, you're somebody like what was his name? Donnie Wahlberg.
Lipton.
I mean, you're somebody like Lipton who's kind of just, you're in the middle of the moment and you're not worried about really anybody else but the guy next to you. Whereas the medic is constantly looking at every bit of carnage that's going on at any given moment.
Yeah.
Everybody else kind of gets to go through it and see the aftermath.
Right.
And he's,
but
I'd say even worse.
Here's this one guy who's just right in the middle of all of the worst parts of everything.
And I would say it worse too, because he sees people that he knows, I can't help him because it would use too much material. I'll have to let him die so I can help the guy who just has a wounded leg. So that too has to.
Triaging people would be horrible.
And this also is another thing we get to see the negative sides of war with Buck.
Yeah.
How he lost, you could see how he changed, because he lost basically everybody, all his buddies, a lot of the people he cared for, and you got to see that he just, after this, he was never the same.
And it was Garnier and, I can't think of the other guy's name off the top of my head, but Wild Bill Garnier and, I can't remember the other guy's name, but I like what they said about that is, nobody thought any less of Bull.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Nobody did. Nobody thought any less of the fact that he just could not continue with it anymore.
And I have a note when to talk about the leaders on kind of, I guess, the real leaders, the people, not the leaders of Easy Company, because he wasn't really there, but the people who took on the role.
Perconte.
The people who took on the role that my character was, my note is a leader had to be part best friend, part social worker, part parent, and part hard ass. And you got to see Donnie Wahlberg play all those characters, all those aspects in one. How on one guy he'd pat him on the back type of thing, and the other guy said, move your ass. I really loved how you got to see one person really change a lot in a matter of one episode.
Yeah, but you also hear him say that he didn't want that job.
No.
He did not want to be their leader.
But a good leader will take it even though he doesn't want it.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I love that.
That's almost the story of Easy Company is just do what needs to be done.
Winters...
To no matter what you tell him to go do, is just like, well, let's go do that.
Yeah, Winters didn't even want command either.
No.
He dropped in and their commander died. And what did he do? He said, okay, well, we need to go take those guns. All right, guys, this is what we're going to do. Let's go do it.
We're going to talk about episode 8, which is titled The Last Patrol. And I don't have the description of what this episode was.
This episode was the one where they're going across the river and capturing Nazis and bringing them back to be interrogated.
Yeah.
Now, this is something that on the back of Baston, and they're coming into here and they're trying to relax, get some downtime, calm down. And what are they being told to do? Got to go get some German? Why?
Capture some Nazis.
This has to be the...
You got to capture Nazis? I shoot Nazis.
Yeah, exactly.
The two notes on here to me that really impressed me with this episode was being inside a building, which being shelled has to be the scariest thing in the world, especially if I remember correctly, they're ours, weren't they?
Yeah.
The other one was terrifying, knowing you're not supposed to kill the Nazi, knowing that somehow you've got to save his life, even though every instinct in your body is telling you to kill him before he kills somebody else.
And the worst thing about this episode is that you have somebody who you've gone with you all the way from Curie, throw a grenade into a building and forget to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They lost a man that did not need to be lost.
Yeah, because if it's a dumb mission.
Because of a dumb mission that some general off somewhere else is saying, oh, we want to get one of these guys. And then they get them and then be told to do it again.
This also introduced a character.
Even though you lost a guy with a grenade, it's still a successful mission.
Right.
Yeah.
And this episode also introduced a character who was injured but didn't escape the hospital. And he basically started over again with basically being low man in the totem pole as far as having friends, because everybody changed so much because of the Battle of the Bulge. Yeah, Webster. So you got to see him try to, because nobody respected him because he didn't escape.
Yeah.
So he
basically... he was eventually brought back into the fold. But it was easy for them to get upset because everybody else had. And, they all wanted to stay together, but...
And he basically got rehazed, and he basically volunteered for this mission, along with the new CO being a kind of watching.
So let us not forget what happened when they were told to do it again the next day.
Yeah. That was actually my next point, is the sign of a good leader will be right there when his men get hanged, because this is where Winters completely lied and said, "Tom, this is what the mission is," and then a few minutes later said, "Now get some sleep."
Yep.
Just if somebody asks, yep, you get the mission, then weren't able to get anything.
We weren't able to get any Germans. Yep.
A good leader will be right next to his troops as they
go
along.
That was a breath of fresh air for the men. That was the first time they actually had an opportunity to get a little bit of rest and take that deep breath and go, okay.
And it almost, to me, it seems like it would make them more willing to follow his orders from then on out. It's like, you know what? We know that this guy's got our back.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So when he tells us to do something, we know that it needs to be done.
Yeah. No,
he's got our best interest in mind.
Question his authority or his judgment. You know?
No, I agree. I mean, I think they all trusted him before when he was a commander, but I definitely think this was like the cherry on top when they realized that, this guy's a good guy.
He was a real deal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Episode 9 is Why We Fight.
Now, this is the one where they actually get into, they're in Germany. I'm trying to see where it says actually they are. It doesn't say exactly where they landed. Landsberg. They land near Landsberg. in Germany. They're taking over a town on their way to
Is it the Alps?
Belgium. They're
right.
heading into. They're on the precipice of moving into their ending the war.
That's right.
And they go out on a patrol and stumble across a concentration camp. And then they realize that all these stories that we're actually hearing. Yes, thank you. I did make the clarification when we did this episode, but anyway, work camp. But that they that these stories that we've heard about what the Germans are doing is true. And I like the fact that they point out to the Germans that you can try to turn a blind eye, but you know what is going on. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, if you're trying to be as blind as you can, we're walking you into there.
And they did that. They took the civilians to the camp, and they made them work. They made them dig graves. Bodies. Take care of the bodies.
I was going to say, I think the beginning of this episode literally sets the pace for the whole movie. This whole episode, I think, because what they do is they have these Germans playing music in the midst of absolute chaos. And to me, that was perfect. Because you could see these Germans holding on to the grasp of their civilization like nothing's wrong. And then later, you find the work camp, and you have that one guy run. He hauled his ass all the way back and said, "You've got to Winters, wasn't it? It's like you got to get your ass over here. You got to
see this.
That to me was the perfect metaphor for what happened later on with even the general or Rommel's
wife, yeah,
and how even she said, "Oh, I didn't know anything." This to me is probably the best episode out of all of them.
It was the most touching. There's no doubt about it.
I'll say that.
I think for me, the scene in this episode that was just broke my heart was here you have all these workers that are bone thin. I mean, you can't be thinner than these people really are and still do any kind of work. And the first thing the soldiers wanted to do was to bring as much food to them as they could. These people are starving. We have to bring them food. And only for a doctor to go, wait a minute, hold on. I know this is what you want to do, but these people will get sick. They'll get sicker and die. We've got to do this in a slow manner. And it was like, I can't believe. And they had to put everybody back into the camp to keep them in that one area for their own good. And it was just
horrific,
heartbroken. See that scene.
I think it was Lewis Nixon who was the translator. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I think that's who it was. Who was one of the only soldiers who actually spoke Polish or German, which they both understood, have to go and do that.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't do that, but he had to. Yeah. And he did it anyway, which really shows what what goes back to what Ryan was saying, is that Easy Company was full of a lot of men who didn't want to do it, but knew it needed to be done, and did it anyways.
There was another scene in this episode to me that painted the picture of the people in this area was when they went to steal the food, and that baker, butcher, whatever he actually was, he was basically saying, "You're not taking this food," and the guy went, "Oh yeah," gun to his face and said, "We're taking this.
Yep.
You don't have a choice."
Yeah. And I disagree with the guy that came up with him. Like, he's saying he doesn't know. He didn't know about it. Well, no, dude, you smell it. It's been this probably. I think the actual concentration worker camps and isolation of the Jews started in like 43, even earlier than that. But mass concentration camps were actually put out, I think, in 43. No, earlier than that, like the 30s anyway. I don't remember the dates offhand, but
they started. It started
into the before the war.
Yeah, right.
There was one other thing I wanted to say, and this goes to, you see how violence changes men. Is they were driving to that town, and it was, for one, it was the cheery song was "He Ain't Gonna Jump No More" played. So you got to see how kind of the violence became part of their lives was the German soldiers. They were captured on the side of the road, and I think there were the British soldiers just lined them up and shot them all. And the guys that are the Easy Company on these troop haulers didn't even flinch. Yeah. And you got to see the replacements jump like, oh my God! And you got to see the old guard just kind of go, eh.
Yeah. Are we on point or are we still on way fight?
I'm just going to switch just now. We're at
Okay.
the last episode of this is titled Episode 10 Points.
This episode to me is one of the saddest episodes. Not off the points, not off the fact that that there were people that couldn't just go home when they wanted to go home, but of the fact of what happened when there was nothing to do for these guys, and that one guy goes around and he's like, well, these guys wouldn't give me gas, and he shoots the guy. Shoots his own soldier. I don't think I could have contained myself in that room just to beat that guy.
Like Spears.
Yeah, like Spears actually contained himself.
Well, you're right.
He came in and he was just going to execute him right then and there. And then he decided that it wasn't worth his time just to let the MPs take care of this. To lose a soldier that went through so much to be shot purposefully by one of his own. That would have sent me over the edge.
I think that also didn't help is they knew, or they had a feeling, or they were told, I don't remember exactly where that happened, is they weren't going home. They knew that there was a good portion of how to be shipped overseas, so they had to wait to die.
Well,
and a lot of these, I think a lot of these guys.
The explanation of the series points. What they mean by points is they got points for every action they were in. They get a certain amount of points, and you reached a certain point. I think it was 65 points.
No, it was 85.
Oh, it was 85. Okay. Yeah. If you hit 85, automatically you got to go home. If you were below 85, you basically got ready to gear up to go fight in the Japanese War.
Yeah, the Pacific campaign.
And I think
now
that had to be the worst part.
The thing that always drove me nuts about that is how did somebody who fought on D-Day make it all the way to the end of victory in Europe and not have enough points? That's the thing that always baffled me is what is the point system?
Yeah.
And one of the guys actually hinted to it. I didn't read up on it. I meant to. But one of the guys was like, well, they don't have, some guys never got hit. They never got a Purple Heart. So there was some point system that also went with Purple Hearts, getting wounded.
Medals. They're always extras, which is a horrible way to put it, really. But
yeah.
The one thing I think
you were saying something, Ryan?
Oh, I was going to say I think you got enough points for me as far as I'm concerned. Between D-Day and Bastogne, that's it. Go home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree.
We all agree with that.
Yeah.
I do want to say that there's two people in this episode to me personally that stand out. One is Spears that James alluded to earlier. When you got to see Spears, who was gung-ho more than most of them, hold his hand and just say, no. That to me showed he almost had his fill of violence in three. The first one was Winters. How Winters used every excuse in the book to send his people home, and that to me was another sign of a good leader when he was finding pedantic crap to send people home or not get them to work. Yeah. That to me was. Right. It's like I wish I got to meet this guy in person.
Well, and even even if he couldn't send him home, to find him something else they could do. In a
role, non-combat role.
Well, I was going to say, in a non-combat role, but in an already victory place where they'd won, like France. Like he had one guy going around to explain the planes. His only experience with the plane was jumping out of it.
Right. True.
It's like, all right. But that's kind of how far he went. And honestly, I would have taken that General's Luger. I would have taken it.
Oh yeah, I would have too.
See, this to me in that scene, this scene to me is really this whole episode is really about control, is self-control, because you have these guys who reality should have just never left their home, and you see these generals that you could easily say his gun went off. Yeah. You could say something happened. None of these people realized. None of these guys decided to take it out for themselves. Because I don't know if I could have controlled myself.
I think had this been a little bit later on, and they had found the actual concentration camps, and they had finally seen the atrocities that the Nazis actually did, it would have been different.
Yeah.
I bet he wouldn't have let that general have his gun, and he may have just taken it and used it on him.
Yeah.
Because that did happen.
I was gonna say, I might have taken the Luger and kneecapped him or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the other thing,
right.
like doing Inglorious Bastards and carving swastika on his head.
the other thing that I was shocked at in this episode was when they walked into the Eagles, or not into the Eagle's Nest, but to the hotel that was down right below the Eagle's Nest, and one of the guys goes up and starts yanking all the silverware.
Yeah.
And the thing that shocked me about that was that Captain Winters went up and was taking some of the silverware and putting it in his hat too.
Spoils of war.
Spoils of war, man.
Spoils of
But
war, right.
Winters
Never did it.
was as always throughout the entire thing above reproach.
Yeah.
And I'm not reproaching him over that, but that was still a questionable action that troops were taking that he did.
Well, luckily,
And I'm not blaming him for nothing. I would have taken a lot more than he did. I would have been like Spears ripping the swastikas off the wall because I'm going to sell them later.
Right. So this is
I'd be like that movie. Gosh, I forgot the name with Donald Sutherland.
Monument Men.
Yeah.
so
That'd be more like.
So
Yeah,
we're
that's what I'm saying.
so as obvious as if you're
I
watching.
would have Elder Scrolls that place. Anything not nailed down, I'm taking it.
So as obviously the show is almost an hour long. So we're gonna finish ending up. As you can honestly tell, I'm kind of speaking for everybody.
I
We love.
think we still have to give it a rating.
Oh no, I'm getting to it.
Okay.
You can obviously tell that we love it, and I generally don't do this, but I'm going to start on my own. If I'd give this a 5 out of 5. I wish I honestly could give it higher, but our rating system limits that. This to me is the best, and will always be the best miniseries about war. Period, because it touched on everything from the excitement to combat to the horrible of war, to personals. This is just amazing. I can't really describe it. Matter of fact, we could probably spend another half hour to 2 hours speaking about this. So
Yeah.
I give this a 5 out of 5. I'm gonna Rob go next.
Yeah, this is probably one of the finest miniseries in quality, with Steven Spielberg's and Tom Hanks being the lead people in this that I've seen. So I couldn't give it any less than a 5.
James?
Yeah, I completely agree. This is hands down 5 out of 5. There's a reason why we picked it for the first one. So yeah,
It's
set the standard bar.
Ryan?
I think I said this before, but I give it a 5 because I can't give it a 6.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so much of everything that you'd ever want to be in something like this. I mean, it might be the best, as far as miniseries goes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen anything better than this. I mean, this was
No.
First of all, it was cheaper than any war movie you've ever seen. I guarantee it. At like 120 million or something like that.
128 million,
Under
yeah.
150. But and it was 4 times as long.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was end to end brilliant.
You know what the hardest part for me was is to wait and not just have the temptation to watch all 10 hours at one
Yes.
sitting. You know?
Yeah.
I just,
Really.
it would come to an end and I go, no, I want to keep going. Put the other one in and put the next, I could have spent all day watching this thing.
And
so.
next, we're continuing on with doing this as a part of Real Flix Reviews. So James has the next series we're going to do, but before that, I do want to reintegrate what James said. Is the reason we picked this is this not only sets the bar, it's way sets the
It
bar.
is the bar.
Yeah.
So, and we truly do hope you enjoy Real Flix Reviews reviewing television series in miniseries. So with that going said, James is going to tell us what we're doing next.
Well, the one that we're going to pick next is one that should have kept on going. It did not.
Yep.
And we're going to be doing this one slightly different than we did the Band of Brothers. We're going to be watching Firefly, and after we're done with Firefly, we're also going to be doing the movie So
because they only went through one season of this,
Yes.
It's
Which is an
miniseries-esque.
atrocity in itself.
Yeah. So that's one that I want to give you guys a heads up. Go out, get them, find a place to watch them, find a friend who has them.
Beg, borrow, or steal.
Yeah.
And then
as you
see
say.
how you agree or disagree with us.
Yeah.
And for
Pretty sure all of them are on Netflix as we speak.
and as the old guy is pointing out, we do have a Facebook page at Facebook.com/RealFlixReviews. If there is a series you want us to do, whether it's the original Battlestar Galactica, the new one, the A-Team, or whatever in between, please let us know.
We'll consider Doctor Who.
Oh. If that's the case, I got the perfect one to pick. So, as from a very somber episode of Real Flix Reviews and one of the best miniseries ever, as always, we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Thank you.